Please take a seat. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, wait. Be comfortable. You can move that to so big deal. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here today in honor of my mother, to remember and celebrate my mother, Rose Agnello's life on earth. For those of you who are not aware, the word rose is derived from Latin and means love. My mother loved many people, but she was loved by everyone. My mother was and is still, as you can see, physically beautiful. Movie star looks, I might add. But the most important thing is that she was beautiful inside. My mother is what you would call a woman child, in that she had the strength and the intelligence of a woman, but she had the playfulness and the innocence of a child, which made her so endearing. She had a great sense of humor, and I'm sure you all know that. She loved to laugh. Practical jokes, she just loved it all. My mom was very intelligent. She had great insight. I believe she knew everything, and I'll tell you why. When I was in the 4th grade, my mom said, "Don't bring Gumby to school." Remember Gumby? I said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. I want to bring Gumby to school." She goes, "No, don't bring Gumby to school. You're going to lose Gumby." I said, No. So what did I do? I defied her, as any child would, right? I brought Gumby to school. I lost Gumby. Darn, just hate when they're right. I never looked at my mom the same way after that. I just knew she knew everything. She was a prophet. She saw the future. When I was in grammar school, I went to St. Teresa's School. My last class of the day was in a classroom that faced the street where my mom would pick me up after school. And I remember looking out of that window, fixating on the street, waiting for the arrival of that blue Cadillac. My father spoiled my mom. She always had a Cadillac, every year, a different color, but I always remember the blue one especially. It was so beautiful. I love that color blue. But more importantly, I was zooming in on her beautiful face and that winsome smile of hers. Just loved her so much. I was so close to her. I was a baby. Maybe that was it. I don't know. I just had a special connection with my mom. I used to cry like a baby when I had to leave to go to school. It was so hard for me to part with her. I remember going to kindergarten and I cried like a baby. I didn't want to leave my mother. I couldn't wait to see her again. But those moments I remember, it just touches my heart more than you know. It was as though I didn't see her for years. It was only a few hours and I couldn't wait to embrace her and hug her. So when I would see her from the window, I couldn't wait for that bell to ring, because I knew once it rang, I would grab my my book bag, I would run down those steps, I would charge out of the front door, and I would run to the car, I would grab my mother, I would hug her and kiss her like I hadn't seen her in years. Just a few hours. That's how much I love my mom. Unfortunately, my mom got sick, really sick. November 2009, my mother fell down the steps in her house. We had to bring her to the emergency room. It became a code blue situation where she almost lost her life. She went into acute respiratory distress. It was like a scene out of a movie. There were 15 doctors and nurses around her trying to revive her. She almost died that day, but she didn't. My mother was a fighter through and through. She survived. All she ever said every time she'd be in the hospital, "I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home." "Yes, Mommy, you're going to go home, don't worry." And she always went home. Since that admission into the hospital in 2009, my mom has been in and out of the hospital approximately 15 times, 15 admissions and 15 stays. The last one being her last, unfortunately. On June 8th, 2015, a Monday, June 8th, 2015. My mom went into the hospital. She went to Montefiore Hospital. For those of you who live in the Bronx or know the Bronx, it's the hospital that's located on East 210th Street. She had her aortic valve replacement done there. Things seemed to be going okay. She was holding her own. I was my mom's health care proxy, so I was the point-on person with the doctors, so I always knew what was going on with her. And unfortunately, 2 days after her operation, I received a call that I wish I'd never received. The attending doctor that day called me and told me that my mom went into acute respiratory distress, which means she couldn't breathe on her own. There was an emergency intubation that had to be done. She was hooked up to a ventilator, which means that was her life support. She couldn't breathe on her own. This all happened so suddenly. We then had her transferred over to Albert Einstein Montefiore Hospital on East Chester Road in the Bronx, where she would be in closer proximity to her heart surgeon. So we're still hopeful. We believe in miracles. We believe in God. And we knew at that point it was still it was a very precarious situation, but we knew there was hope. Even though she was intubated, we were hoping for the best, for a miracle. Come Monday, June 15th, 2015. There's my mom in the cardiac ICU, and once again I get a call from the doctor, and he says, "Angela, just want to let you know, we're going to extubate your mom today. We'll take the tube out. Give her a chance to fly." That's the term they use, to fly. Breathe on her own. I'm like, "Oh, that's great news, doctor. Yeah, go for it." So my family, the immediate family, my father, Valentino, as you know, my sister Susan, my handsome nephew Dylan here, and myself, we're there, hoping and praying around my mom's bed that she would make it. Interestingly enough, she did well that day. She had an oxygen mask on, compensation oxygen. I said, "Mommy, we're going to go across to Applebee's, we're going to have some dinner, and then we'll be back." And you know, she wasn't talking. She couldn't talk because I don't know if you know about intubation, but when you have a tube down your throat, you know, it's very difficult to talk after that. It affects your throat, even affects your vocal cords. It's hard to talk. But she was able to let something out. She said, "Don't forget me." I said, "Mom, we're just going to Applebee's." "What are you talking about? It's right across the street. Look, you can see it from the window." I said, "Mommy, we can never forget you. Never. We love you so much, Mommy. Never forget you." So we go to Applebee's. I don't know if you like Applebee's. We really don't like it, but don't tell them I told you that. But we went. It was the only restaurant nearby, so we went there. Anyway. So we go back to the restaurant. We're sitting in the family lounge area, and the doctor, Dr. Berger, comes in and says, "I have bad news." I said, "Oh, what happened?" He said, "Your mom failed the breathing test. She has to be reintubated." We didn't like that news. What were we going to do? We had to approve it. We said, "Okay, she can't live without it. Reintubated." So she was reintubated. That was Monday, June 15th, 2015. Ordinarily, you're not supposed to be intubated for longer than 14 days. At that juncture, she was getting past that point, but she needed the support from the ventilator. She then acquired pneumonia twice. She got anemia, jaundice. She had severe scoliosis of the back, which then in turn made her lungs crooked. She had collapsed lungs. Everything was working against her, plus she had stage 2 Alzheimer's disease. Her mental status was deteriorating. So she had a lot of things working against her, unfortunately. So we had to make a decision once again. Plan A. When mom is extubated, they could do a tracheostomy and a gastrostomy, which is basically a trach in the windpipe and a peg in the stomach, a feeding tube, which would mean she'd go into a nursing home for the rest of her life, vegetate, never be able to see the light of day or her home or her family again in her home. She would be vegetating. Knowing that, we didn't want my mom's quality of her life compromised. So we said, no. What's plan B? Plan B, take the tube out, extubate her, and leave it up to God at that point. Fly or die, literally. So we opted for plan B. Again, we're all praying and hoping for a miracle. And so Tuesday, June 30th, 2015, the day we chose to extubate my mom. At approximately 7:15 p.m. that night, the people from respiratory came in and the nurses accompanied them, and they took the tube out of my mom. Had Aunt Julie there, a wonderful sister, Uncle Pete. Unfortunately, Aunt Vicky couldn't make it, but I know she called us and she was there in spirit. And Uncle Danny, thank you so much for being there as well, supporting us. And of course my father, my sister, my nephew, and myself. We were hoping for a miracle. Took the tube out. They gave her an oxygen mask for compensation breathing, which is fine. We've been down this road before. But still very hopeful that Mom would pass the breathing test. Now we're all fixating on the monitor above my mom's head. Anything above 94 is perfect. We knew we were hoping 100% oxygen level would be good, but we would take 94 to 98, right? She was holding her own for many hours. She was in the 90s. And then overnight, the numbers started to decrease. 94, 93, 92, and then into the 80s, into the 70s, into the 60s, into the 50s, into the 40s, and the 30s, and the 20s, and then my mom zeroed out. My mom took her last breath at 7:55 a.m. on July 1st, 2015, when God intervened and took control. He took her home, not to Rollins Avenue in the Bronx. He took her home to her eternal home in heaven with her Father, God in heaven. And now my mom is with her mother, Aunt Sandy, Aunt Jean, Uncle Frank, Aunt Marianne, all of those that she lost, that she loved, who passed before her, and she's with them in heaven now, looking down at us now saying, "Boy, you sound so depressed, Angela. Don't you know I'm happy up here?" "Yes, Mom, I know. You can breathe again, eternally. I get it." So Mom is at peace. This is her vessel, as we can see, beautiful vessel. But in spirit, she's transcended, and she's in heaven with God. And we'll all be there together. We'll have a big party. Hey, I heard you don't gain weight in heaven, by the way. I don't know if you know about that. But I have informants, and you're always looking good. You look 25 again. True, this is true. You're always 25, and you're size 0. I never even thought that existed, but just have to let you know I know people. I speak to dead people. But anyway, I do want to thank you all for being here, and I do want to close with a beautiful poem. So my assistant here is going to give me my phone. Thank you.